Behind the Shades.
Yeah, so I'm Momma FoxFire. I am a mental health advocate, single mom, full-time proposal manager. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a variety gamer. I host a mental health focused talk show, and I am Momma FoxFire, MOMMAFOXFIRE, everywhere on socials. So if you're looking for me on Twitter, which is now X, whatever you want to call it, is fine. YouTube, TikTok. I mean, every social that I can be on, I'm on as Momma FoxFire. So feel free to look me up anywhere. My podcast is called Even Tacos Fall Apart, and you can look that up, and would love to have you join the community if you're looking for a community to join, besides Behind the Shades, obviously.
I did not pay her for that, but thank you for the plug. But definitely,
Absolutely.
please follow her. She's fantastic, everyone. So for me, I don't necessarily celebrate the holiday season, but one thing that I do love about the holiday season and the New Year's part of it is the spirit. Everyone is so friendly, right? There's people where if I was in the same room with them, I can be honest with you, right? We'd
Oh,
probably
yeah.
be at each other's throats. But during December and January, we love each other, right?
Yeah.
And take us through what this season means to you and to those close to you.
So I really love the holidays. I am not super religious anymore. I grew up Baptist and Church of Christ and like a mix of things. So, but I'm not really very religious anymore, but we do still celebrate Christmas. We do still, do all of these things around these different traditions that our family has. So it's mostly just about getting together and sharing food and sharing some joy. And that's really what holidays mean to me. Now, at the same time, my grandfather died yesterday, I believe. It was 4 years just yesterday. So he died around this time of year. He had a long battle with breast cancer, and men can get breast cancer too. I don't remember if we talked about that in particular before, but my grandfather died to breast cancer. So I have a tattoo on this arm. This is a handlebar mustache. He had a handlebar mustache for a lot of his life. And I've got some really good pictures of him with this handlebar mustache. But anytime anyone asks me about this tattoo, they get a whole earful on how men can get breast cancer too. And if you don't get yourself checked regularly, you notice anything going on in your kind of pec region that's a little odd, don't ignore it. So anyway, back to what we were talking. We were right at the top of this in our exclusive green room. we were talking about me going down rabbit holes, and that is what we're here for, right? So going back to holidays, this season is really just all about joy, but it can also be a time of reflection and sometimes a time of not joy. Some people lose family members around holidays, or they're reminded that those family members aren't there for holidays, or maybe you had something traumatic happen around a holiday or something like that. And it's okay to not enjoy the holidays, even if other people are enjoying them. You don't diminish their joy by not having joy yourself, and you don't have to fake it either. And you can be honest about it with the people that are around you. And then I think also, we're recording this on December 30th, right? So it's about to be New Year's, and everyone's talking about, oh, here's all the things they're posting their, what do they call it on Spotify? I don't use Spotify. What's the thing at the end that like summarizes all your stuff?
Oh, that's the end of the year wrap.
Yes, the wrap. There we go. So everyone's posting their life wrap, right, on Facebook. Look at all, I've had such a good year, and I had all these things that I've accomplished, and I did this and that, and I look back on this year and it's so wonderful. It's okay if all you did was survive. That's valid too. That's a huge accomplishment. And it's easy to get discouraged when you see people talk about, here's everything I've done, but it's okay to just survive too. You don't have to have some major accomplishment to have had a good life lived in the past year. So those are kind of like my feelings around the holidays are, yes, I love them. Yes, there's a lot of family and a lot of joy, but also respectfully, I recognize that a lot of people have a lot of big emotions around this time of year, and that's okay too.
I couldn't imagine if I was someone that suffered a loss during this time of year. My condolences to you and your family, is because the way I look at it is at least here in Canada, from October to about the end of the year is all
Mhm.
about family, right? You have Thanksgiving, you have Remembrance Day, you have holiday season, then you start the new year, and the new year is supposed to be like new year, new you, and new relationships, right?
Yep.
And if you're someone that doesn't have anyone, if you're someone that, let's say you lost a family member,
Mhm.
let's say you had a divorce, let's say your relationship ended after the summer and you've been single this entire time, right? Or take it back 2, 3 years ago. Imagine when it was the lockdowns and you couldn't have anyone
Yeah.
over. And you look at it as you're in your home, which is supposed to be a place of love. You look to your left, you look to your right, and there's no one around you to share love with. There's no one around you to share what the commercials are telling you, what Facebook is telling you, what
Yeah.
Instagram is telling you, what TikTok is telling you. There's no one to dance to All I Want for Christmas from Mariah Carey. There's no one around you to share these things with. And there's this joke how Valentine's Day has been renamed Single Awareness for those who don't have someone.
Oh, I like that.
Right? Right. You like that, right? There's even a green
That's
ring
good.
where you can wear that shows that you're single. We'll talk offline about that. And
Okay.
and instead of a day signifying you are single, imagine a whole month
Mm.
showing that, hey, everyone around you has a family member or a family to celebrate with, and you're all alone. Your
Mhm.
success at that point doesn't matter. Your degree at that point doesn't matter. Hell, having all of your teeth at that point doesn't matter. So when you had your grandfather pass away and you had to reflect and understand that life is, for the most part, going to be different going forward,
Mhm.
what are some of the ways that you handled and perhaps even coped with that situation?
Yeah. So, like I said, he had a long battle with cancer. And at this point, he had been in the hospital for a really long time. And he had been having treatment and everything for several years. And so we'd been going through, okay, well, grandpa's going to do this treatment now. He's going to do this treatment now. So I feel like one, I don't want to say good thing about cancer, but one good thing about cancer is that most of the time you do have a long time to adjust. And the thing about my grandfather, especially that grandfather, was he was a preacher and he was also a funeral director and a mortician. And so we grew up talking about death very differently from a lot of people. We talked about death as oh, this community came and had a really cool celebration of life, or this community came and had a really somber, very religious, heavy service for this person. And it was so cool to see these differences. So we grew up, I mean, hell, I grew up with going to Sonic, getting a bag of burgers, going to the funeral home where my grandfather was working, and having a meal with him while he was preparing, not while he was preparing a body, but like he would come out from the from the area and we would sit down and have a meal together at the funeral home. That was normal. And so we grew up very differently, thinking about death, talking about death, just generally being around death was not weird for us. And so at the end of his life, we had a lot of really cool conversations with him about, okay, well, what do you want to have happen when you die? And that's something that I think a lot of people don't wind up doing. And I'm kind of turning this into very much a death positivity spin now for some reason. But I think that it's really important to talk with your loved ones about what you want to have happen when you die, so that they don't have to make those decisions for you. Those are really hard things to go through. I've been, when my former mother-in-law passed away, she died to a form of blood cancer. And when she passed away, we didn't have a lot of those conversations with her. It was very different. And I wound up kind of leading the funeral planning and making those decisions because the family was so paralyzed about, we don't know what to do next. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, here's the next thing to do. Here's the next person to call. But with my grandpa, it was really easy to say, what do you want to have as your celebration of life? What would you prefer in this case? What do you think is going to happen to you when you die in the next coming weeks, years, months, whatever it is? So we were able to have a lot of these really, first of all, philosophical conversations that were really cool. And then second of all, these really tangible things and kind of talk through them. So when he did pass, it was less of a shock and less of a traumatic experience and more of a, we've expected this, we've prepared for it. of course, it was still very emotional, very sad. And everyone was very much reflecting on different things. And for a lot of us, it was just like, even though we'd had all this time to prepare, it was still this whoosh of, wow, he's gone, and that moment of, my life is different now. Even though I didn't see him every day or anything like that, it's different. It changes immensely when you lose someone who's really close to you. And that's a normal part of death and loss of life and grieving and everything, is that feeling. And so one of the things that we did as a family was to get together at my parents' house and to sit around and just talk about Grandpa. We all pulled up pictures and told stories and all of that. And a lot of the time, at least here in Texas or Oklahoma or wherever, kind of this general area, you do a lot of that at the wake. Like our wakes here are generally kind of like, we sit around and talk about people that passed or different stories of people that we hadn't seen. They're kind of family reunions. And so you sit around, you eat, you tell stories. And that's a big way that my family, and I don't mean just like my immediate family, but our whole family deals with death, is sitting around and talking about the person and talking about the stories. And for me personally, it was just a matter of kind of turning back to, okay, I'm feeling some really heavy emotions. I'm feeling really sad. What do I need to do right now? Do I need to sit and have a good cry? I cry all the time. I got a box of tissues right here. There's like 3 boxes of tissues in the living room in different areas. There's tissues in the kitchen. There's tissues. I just cry. I'm a crier. Okay. I just cry. So it's like, do I need to sit and have a little cry? Do I need to watch something happy? Do I need to watch a comedy show? Do I need to do a little gaming to really distance myself from reality for a little while? Do I need to read a book? Again, that's another like distancing technique that I rely on pretty heavily, is reading. And so it's just a real combination. And then lots of hugging my kids. So much hugging my kids. Like I hug them all the time anyway, but you would not believe how many times I would just like pull them in and hug them real quick. And they'd be like, Mom. So it's a huge combination of things when you lose someone, especially around the holidays. And we didn't do anything like, take a moment to specifically honor Grandpa during any holidays or anything like that. But when he comes up in your mind and you bring him up around family and stuff, it's just a cool thing to be able to sit there and have those moments to share.
And I think that's the power of pictures. Whereas you can pull up a picture of your grandfather, or for those of you listening who have lost someone or maybe are missing someone, you can pull up a photo of them, right? It could be on your phone. It could be actually back in the 1900s. We actually had printed them off, and you can look at them and say, I remember this time.
1900s.
Well, we're all born in the 1900s, right? So it could be something along those lines. And the way I look at death is you go from the physical state, whereas you and I, let's say today, and you transition into a more spiritual and, let's say, mental and emotional state of mind, because you're remembered in people's memories, maybe in their tasks of their day-to-day activities. So for example, if I were to pass away, or if you were to pass away, since we're both in this industry, we would go from the physical to existing through our art, our podcasts, our interviews. That will live on, and that will still communicate who we were, who we are, what we stood for, what we represented. So when I coach people and I share that with them, it's my way of letting them know that you may not be able to see the person. You may not be able to physically touch the person, give them a hug, but they still exist as long as you want them to exist. Right. And that's the beautiful thing about a memory. Once the memory is gone and once we no longer remember them, that's when they're truly lost. But we don't want to ever get to that point. So as we're looking towards entering the new year and helping people the new year, what are some goals or maybe some outlooks that you have to start us off for the new year?
Yeah, so that to me is a really good question, because I don't necessarily do the New Year's resolution thing. Like I don't really do that because it's such an arbitrary, it's like, I get it. Lots of people see it as a turning and they see it as an opportunity to do these things, but I try to have constant goals. Like I don't ever not have a goal. And so I feel like I use this time more for reflection rather than forward looking, but this is a good moment to say, and this is true for anything, like you can use it for every turning of the season if you wanted to, but this is a good moment to say, all right, today is December 30th, 2023. If I take myself forward in 3 months and I'm looking at something in March, I take myself forward 6 months and I'm looking at something in March, April, May, and I'm looking at something in June, right? If I take myself forward another 6 months and I'm looking at something in December of next year, if I'm looking at December 30th, 2024, what do I want to say I've done this year? And this is an okay time to do that. You can do that anytime though. Like you don't have to reserve it for New Year's, but just kind of look forward and imagine what your life is going to be. What do you want to sit here in the same spot, but a year later and say, I've done this in the past year? And I would not focus on a goal that is something about your weight, unless you want to just say, I've been healthier. I would not focus on something that is necessarily out of your control, like subscriber numbers. That's a big thing that people are like, I want to have this many subscribers by then, or listeners for a podcast or something. I would not focus on something that you do not have control over. So if you're looking to do something like lose weight, focus on the things that you can do that are healthy and say, every day, I want to eat X number of vegetables. I just remembered that I have soup sitting right here that I never actually ate. So because I mentioned vegetables, and this is one of the ways that I've been getting more vegetables this year, is to have these soups that are like, this one says 35% of my daily vegetables. So you can do like V8 or whatever. I want to have X number of vegetables every day, or I want to do this one healthy habit every day, or X number of times a month. And if it's something like subscribers, well, I want to post a certain number of times a week, or I want to, make sure that I'm engaging in a community in a certain way consistently. And so picking things that are measurable, but that you also have control over is something that I think a lot of people miss. They're like, okay, measurable. Weight is measurable. Absolutely. You can't always control your weight. So I'll share. I haven't shared this one with anyone yet, so you're the only one that I'll share this with, and your listeners also, because I don't make a big deal about it. But I've lost 40 pounds this year, and it's not because I set a goal to lose 40 pounds. It just happened to work out like exactly 40 pounds lost this year since February. I didn't weigh myself before then, but and I didn't do that by saying I want to lose weight. I did that by saying I want to eat more vegetables. I want to make sure that I am setting a good example for my kids. I want to make sure that I am making healthy choices and not doing so much emotional eating. Because that was the big thing for me. Was I'm like I said, I cry a lot. I'm a very emotional person. One of the ways that I soothe those emotions is to have crunchy things, popcorn, chips, that kind of stuff. So I set myself these not really goals, but just like I kind of put these things in place that said, I want to eat more. And now that's different too. I want to eat more vegetables, not less calories. I want to eat more healthy things, not fewer bad things. And so doing things like that really can have a big impact, even if you're not necessarily paying attention to it. Because I didn't pay attention to it until I was like, I wonder how that's going. And I weighed myself, right? So going great. And then if you have goals related to your kids where you're like, I want them to do well this year, or anything like that, you can do things like, I want to make sure that I'm checking in with my kids in a realistic way every day. My kids and I have a check-in every day, and we do a series of questions every day. And so I can tell from how they answer those questions, how they're doing that day and what I can do to better support them. So really, when you're looking at New Year's resolutions and goals and things like that, only do things that you can actually control, not the results. The results aren't what you're after. It's your actions throughout the year. I think that's a really, I know that I get up on these soapboxes and I'm like, these are things that work for me. If that doesn't work for you, then fuck it, don't do it. Like you do it how it's going to work for you. This is just kind of what works for me. So I tend to put these into really generalization, like this should solve everything. I recognize that it's not going to work for everyone. And I am going to take a sip of my soup here.
I'm glad you mentioned the weights because that seems to be a big one. I know there's the gym goers, the gym bros and the gym sis out there who are like, oh, January 1st, the gyms are going to be so packed until,
Yeah.
well, in
Yeah.
Canada, until Valentine's Day, right? They won't get any machines and their whole schedule's thrown off. And for me, I started back probably, I changed my diet. So similar to you, I wanted to not eat less of something, eat more. So what I started to do is I started to incorporate um, more vegetables, like you mentioned. But I did it in a way that I want to do them as snacks.
Hmm.
Right. So outside of the regular meal. So that way my meals were smaller, but I was still eating the same amount. I just spread
Yeah.
over the entire day. And I mentioned this to my friend. I made the joke. I was like, yeah, my summer body starts now, November 1st, for example, right? He's like, oh, why don't you wait until January so it could be a New Year's resolution? And then I asked
I
him,
wait.
well, exactly. Then I was like, what am I going to do November and December? Just eat myself into something worse, into a food coma, and then I'm just going to spring out January 1st. I was like, no, this is something I want to do. So let's do it now. And I think some people sometimes the last couple of months of every year, they give up on the progress they've made because maybe when they look at the scale, they see I'm supposed to be down 15 pounds, but I'm only down 10. Oh, I'll wait until January 1st. Or I was supposed to earn X amount of dollars, but I only earn this. So they're going to continue to stay in an unhappy job because they get discouraged. I see a lot of people get demotivated during the holiday season because summertime, no matter where you are, is fun. It's hot. You can wear the clothes you want. The clothes are usually very flattering to your body type. But then when it starts to get a little bit colder, you begin to realize, okay, you're indoors more. You have more time to think. You have more time to wonder and maybe say, hey, I'm not where I am in my life. So to your point, you're reflective on the past, but that should be used in a way to create where you want to go in the future. But sometimes some people look at it and they're like, Momma FoxFire, I'm just not where I am. Life sucks. I'm still single. I don't have the type of friends I want. I still can't travel. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
All right. I haven't left my city in 2 years. What am I going to do? How would you help those people who are maybe going through those types of thoughts?
I mean, I get it. Those kinds of thoughts can be really hard and really challenging to handle. And I would first of all encourage people to get a therapist. Like I am not a therapist, and I make that very clear. But if you're also looking to just kind of vent and be like, shit, this is not what I want for my life. You know, one of the things that I like to do is put things out there to the community and say, here's how I'm feeling. What would you say if this was a friend? You know, if this was a friend saying this to you, what would you say to them? And because I talk to myself and I'm like, I am single. Like I dated this year. I've dated men, I've dated women. It's much more fun to date women, but boy, do they want to move super fast. And I have realized every time it's gotten to a point where I was ready to not be in a relationship anymore, I'm like, am I happier with this person, or am I happier by myself? And the answer so far has been I'm happier by myself, and I'm okay with that. So you kind of have to look at it and say, all right, oh, I'm still single. Oh, I'm still this. Oh, I'm still that, or I'm not happy with this, or I'm not happy with that. And then you can start in with that really negative self-talk and say, well, you're single because you're fat. You're single because you're not interesting. You're single because you're whatever. But if you were to say that, if I were to call up my friend and say, I'm single because I'm fat, right? She would say, shut the fuck up. You're single because you're happier. And that's fine. It's okay to be that way. You're single because you weren't willing to stay in a relationship that wasn't serving you. And that's okay. And, you got to talk to yourself like you're a friend instead of like you're yourself. Does that make sense? Because I can talk to myself in the most shitty way possible. But if my friend calls me and says those same exact things, I'm going to tell her, oh, whoa. Oh, I did this with my grandma actually just the other day. So my grandma has dementia, and it's been a tough couple of months. I think part of it is the holiday season. Part of it is the season in general, just it being dark all the time. And part of it may be that we lost my grandpa this time of year. I don't know that she recognizes and connects those two, but that could be part of it. Regardless, her dementia has caused her to have some really bad days lately. And there was one day where I was on the phone with her for hours, and I went over there and stayed over there for hours. And then when I went home, she called me like 10 o'clock at night, and she was still having a hard time. I was like, do you want me to come back over there? She was like, no, I don't want you to come over here. I just wanted to be on the phone. I was like, okay, that's fine. We can sit here and we can talk. And she kept saying things like, I'm just so stupid. I can't believe I would mess this up. I can't believe I can't get this stuff straight in my head. And I told her repeatedly, I was like, Grandma, I will come over there and kick your butt if you don't stop. I don't cuss with my grandma. So I will come over there and kick your butt if you don't stop, because no one gets to talk to my grandma that way, not even my grandma. And that's the kind of thing that I would encourage someone who was to come to me with concerns like that. I'd say, look, what are you doing self-talk internally? What are you doing? What are you saying to yourself in your head? And how can you change that a little bit to be like, all right, I'm going to give myself some grace and myself some space to handle things the way that I need to handle them. And in the case of my grandma's dementia, that's hard, right? That's hard to do because she's battling her own brain. But so is everyone else. Everyone else is battling their own brain in a different way. And so you have to say, am I speaking to myself in the right way? Or would Momma FoxFire come through this phone and kick my ass because I'm talking to myself in a way that she's not going to allow? And it's hard. It's hard to change that kind of negative self-talk and to adjust your mindset a little bit to say, I am going to give myself that grace and that space to be kinder to myself. And to give, life is not a series of perfect events. There's the series of unfortunate events, the books and everything. And I think it's a show and a movie probably. My kids love those, but every time they bring up the book title, series of unfortunate events, I'm like, so life? Because a lot of the time, life is not going from happy thing to happy thing. It's defined by these big events, happy or sad or angry or upsetting or whatever, traumatic. You've got these big events in your life that are a whole range of, this is a good one, this is a bad one. And it's the pieces in between and how you let yourself get from event to event that really is your life. And so how are you moving through your space until you get to the next big thing that you're going to look back on and be like, I handled that well, or I handled that poorly, or I could have handled that better. I'm going to learn from it for next time. And how are you recovering from those things in your life? And maybe that's getting from holiday to holiday. Maybe that's getting from Halloween to Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's. Maybe those are the markers in your life that you're trying to get through. And it's okay to say, I've got to recover. I'm not going to do shit between Christmas and New Year's because I got to recover. And that's okay. It's okay to just exist for a little while and to chill and to maybe do a little bit of wallowing, but don't only wallow. You know what I mean?
There was a time in my life where I was going through a difficult relationship, and it brought me back to when you said was this relationship's not serving me anymore. I realized a few months in that I was losing myself in the sense that I was unhappy. And I would try to talk to this person and just tell them, I don't need you to make me happy, nor do I want you to make me happy. I just want you to not make me unhappy. Right? If there's one job that I want to tell everyone when it comes to your interpersonal skills and your relationships is don't make the person you care for unhappy.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're around them, they should at least be as happy as they were, or more happy. But if you're the source of their unhappiness, that's a painful position to be in, because when that person looks at you, when you're around, you're like a drain on their energy. Let me tell you, once I was free from it, it was like,
Yeah.
right? It was fantastic. It was like immediate. And I know you shared some of the difficulties that you went through in your marriage and your
Mhm.
relationship previously. And it all comes back to that, like you said, right? Like, what conversations are you having internally,
Mhm.
right? Are you staying because you're comfortable? Are you enduring because you think out there is scarier? Let me tell you, dating these days, oh Lord, and I'm glad you said that women rush everything, because I'm going to snip that part and send it out to every single man out there and say, look, she said this, okay? And she has experience because she dated men and women. But that's another
Women,
story for another day.
I will say though, like women are much more fun to date, but yeah, they do want to move really fast. Too fast for me, typically. I'm like, don't get that U-Haul yet.
I there's a girl, she moved in her stuff. I was like, whose toothbrush is this?
No. Without talking to you first? Oh
Yeah,
no.
it was so strange, because my, well, I go by it now, so my toothbrush are like a greenish, like, I love the color green and blue. So
Mhm.
there's a green and blue, so it's obvious if it's not there, right?
Yeah.
Because when I saw hers was like more of it was like a neon color. It wasn't like the stereotypical pink or purple. It was more like a neon color.
Yellow or orange or
And
something.
exactly, right. And sometimes when you're so used to a certain routine in your house, you don't even look. You just grab the toothbrush, right,
Yep.
or grab whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed it. I looked it up, and I was like, it was so bright. I'm like, this is not mine. Then I yelled her name. I was like, what's this? And then I went into the medicine cabinet and I saw the feminine hygiene products. I was like, no, this is not happening right now. But what I did love about it is that we joked about it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I
That's
like. I like
important.
this. It is. I like the sense of humor, because some people may look at it as, well, she's invading your space. Yeah, you could look at it that way, but why don't you look at it as a more positive way? Say, hey, this is maybe her indication that she wants to spend more time at your place, or she's so comfortable with you now, she's letting her guard down,
Mm-hmm.
right? It goes back to that internal conversation. Are you having it in a positive way, saying that I'm healthier this year than I was last year? Or are you having a negative approach? Same thing. I'm less healthy, or I feel fat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you could be at a bigger dress size and be healthier than you were at the smaller dress
Yeah.
size,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And some people don't realize that. So speak to us more, continue to speak to us about like the internal conversation, because you're 40 pounds down. Congratulations. For a lot of people, that's tough to do, but here you
Oh
are,
yeah.
you did it, and you did it in a way that, hey, let me go check. And then you realize this huge accomplishment. So how was
Mm-hmm.
that?
I mean, it's nice. It's nice to get that validation, right? I'll be honest though, like I am a fat person. I don't try to hide that, and I don't worry about being fat. I think that there's a lot of things that would be easier if I weren't fat, but that's been my reality for so long that I don't even it doesn't bother me that I am fat. And like I said, my goal was not to lose weight. So the weight loss is kind of like this bonus of trying to be a little bit healthier and trying to do these good habits, right? And so yeah, that's kind of cool. It's kind of nice. I still have to get a seatbelt extender when I go on an airplane. Like that hasn't changed. So I and I love, I'm going to go back to one of your comments just real quick, because you said something about the summer versus winter clothes, and that the summer clothes are like always more flattering. I'm over here like, give me the big puffy coats. Those are better. Those are better for me than summer clothes most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of focus, especially in the US, on obesity as a disease, and obesity as, or like it's disease versus moral failure, right? And so I do think that there are a lot of things that are outside of someone's control. I can't control my level of stress necessarily when it comes to work. I can control my level of stress a little bit when it comes to home life and stuff. And that goes back to relationships and being in control of that. I can't control how much stress my kids bring me, so and your body reacts to stress in different ways. And for me, it contributes to my weight. So I can eat a certain number of calories and not lose weight when someone else would lose 10 pounds on that in a month. And so it's not necessarily about what you're taking in and what you're putting out. That 40-pound weight loss may not really have very much to do with what I am eating. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that it's not just calories in, calories out. There's so many different things that contribute to weight and that contribute to weight loss that you're never actually going to really know what did it for you. And some people have a way easier time and some people have a lot harder time. And I do want to say, like, if you are looking for quality of life improvements, work with your medical provider also, because they have some things, especially now, that can really help you. And I know a lot of people consider, like weight loss drugs or weight loss surgery or whatever. A lot of people will say, oh, that's cheating. You just need to worry about your calories. Like, it's not. If that's what it takes for you, and that's something that you have worked with your medical provider on to do, and you have both agreed that it's a good goal, then do it. That's what it's going to take. Because for me, if you look at my calories in, calories out for this year, I probably should have lost like 80 pounds. But the reality is that my body reacts different ways to stress. I've got different genetics that aren't going to allow that. And so doing those things and then realizing that something has happened it's really kind of a nice bonus on top. But my goal wasn't to lose weight. It was to be able to move around with my kids more. It was to be able to set a good example for them, even though they already eat very healthy anyway. And so it's like, yeah, it's cool to lose weight. That's a cool bonus that I happened to realize this year. But that's why I don't really talk about it with anyone. Like, I haven't even told my mom, my sister. They don't know that I've lost 40 pounds. First of all, once you're at a certain size, you just can't tell when you lose 40 pounds. It's going to take a lot more for anyone to be able to tell that I've lost weight. It'll take a lot more, especially if you're seeing them every day too. Like, they're not going to notice. And you see yourself every day. And so you can see yourself every day and think, oh, well, I haven't really lost any weight, because that's my thing. Like, I saw myself last year this time. I don't look different to me, but I'm sure if I went and found a picture that compared exact to exact pose, clothes, everything, I'm sure there would be a difference. So, I mean, yeah, it's important to have something to focus on, but try to make it something that is internally healthy for you. And for me, that goes back to mindset and self-talk and those kinds of things that you can really work on with a therapist who can help you and challenge you and say, all right, so you said this 5 times this session. I want you to rephrase it or reframe it or whatever it is that they're working with you on. And that's something that's really important also, just to try not to judge yourself so harshly and try to find the things that work for you in whatever it is that your goal is. But yeah, when it comes to weight loss and how it makes me feel to have lost 40 pounds, I don't give a shit, honestly. It's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to say, like, yeah, I lost 40 pounds this year, but was I trying?
I'm glad you mentioned it that way, because it's the number. The number is good, right? For medical, they're going to say you want to be within that number, but it's how you feel.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned it that way, because that ties into everything that we spoke about when it comes to, we're going to use an example, when it comes to healthy living. Okay. You want to get to a point, you want to get to a destination that you want to create. That destination may not have a number, it may not be 120 pounds, 150 pounds. Destination may be that I want to be able to run around, play with my kids as I get older. I want to be healthier. So what does that look like? That looks like this. And then you have a picture of what that looks like. And then you try to get there, and you may lose weight, you may gain muscle, whatever the case is. And it also goes to your destination may be that I want to be happily in a relationship. Okay, what does that look like? It may be marriage. It may be more friends. It may be a companion. Maybe whatever the case is, right? And then you mentioned job as well. That could be, okay, I want to be at a job where once I disconnect from it, I don't have stress when I get home from it. Because a
Mhm.
lot of people still suffer from that. Like I work from home
Oh yeah.
and seeing the laptop on my desk, I
Mine's
look down
right
and I'm
here.
like, oh Lord, you're trying to like fight the urge to open it and just type that one email that you know could wait till the Monday. But you're like, no, but if I do it now, it's like you dream this up in your head that you're doing something extra. And it's a lot of stress.
Mhm.
I told one of the ladies that I coach, I was like, the most demanding and perhaps toxic relationship you'll ever have is with work. Because we
Mm.
would allow people to talk to us a certain way that we wouldn't, let's say family members, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend. We will miss important dates for work,
Yeah.
anniversaries,
Yep.
birthdays, vacations, and we will postpone um, certain health related appointments for ourselves.
Yep.
Say, I have a deadline. Okay, doctor, I know I have to get my blood sugar down, but can we see next week? I have this big project I have to do. And now that we're in the holiday season, most of us are probably off for at least a couple of days where we can disconnect. We don't have to focus on things that are causing us stress, or at least we try to, right? Um, how are you enjoying being, if you are, being away from some of the things that are causing you stress, such as a job or things along those lines?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I'm in the architecture, engineering, construction industry as a proposal manager. I work mostly with military clients. And so the thing about the military is they take off, but they put things out right before the holiday. So December 14th, they put out a bid that we have to respond to mid-January. So I was supposed to be off right now. I mean, I'm not working today because it's Saturday. And I have also this year tried to really say, I'm not going to work weekends if I don't have to. There have been a couple of weekends where I had to, but that has been one of the things that I really tried to do with work was set that Friday 5 p.m. to Monday 9 a.m. I'm not going to work. Like I said, there have been exceptions, but it's actually been going pretty well this year. So this year I was supposed to be off right now, but I'm not. And so you're right. Like I had scheduled time off. I wasn't going anywhere because I've been in this industry long enough that I know this happens every year. So while I put time off on the calendar, I didn't schedule any trips or anything. And so, but when I get the chance to unplug is usually in the summer. And I do take time off and I do plan trips in the summer. And so whenever I'm able to really disconnect, and I have also set another boundary in the past couple of years to say when I take a trip, whether it's by myself, because I try to go to a new country every year by myself, or with the kids, because we try to go somewhere different with the kids every year as a big family. Like my sister's family goes, my parents go, my other sister and her boyfriend go, and some of my cousins go. Sometimes my grandma goes. Like all this, it's a big trip. I have in the past couple of years said I'm not taking my laptop, and I go on to my phone and I say Teams and Outlook, I shut them off completely. I turn off the notifications for the extent of my PTO. Because I would never do that before. I would always say like, oh, well, I'm going to still have Teams and Outlook on my phone. So I'll still respond to stuff even if I don't take my laptop. It is such a game changer to be able to not do that. Because first of all, they're not paying you enough. They're not paying you enough. I don't care how much they're paying you. They're not paying you enough to interrupt your sacred time with yourself or your family. And everyone needs downtime. Everyone really does need time where they aren't stressed about work or where they aren't thinking about work. I had a dream about work the other day because this bid is so big and so important and so stressful because everyone else is off. Even in our company, we have 5 different people that are working on this proposal who have this week off. And I'm like, all right, that leaves, I think, 3 or 4 of us who are working on this to try to get it ready until they come back. And I would not want those 5 people to come to say, well, I'm not going to take that time off. I want them to take the time off. I just wish it didn't, I wish we could all take that time off. But yeah, it's important to be able to unplug, whether that's around the holidays. It's nice around the holidays because then it's less stress. Holidays can be really stressful. You're having to prepare food, you're buying gifts, you're doing all this stuff, you're running kids around to different programs, and they've got a play that they're in, or they've got a music recital that they're in, or whatever. So it's already stressful enough without a work deadline. Unfortunately for me, this is the time that those really do kick in, because the military is just like, oh, I'm going on leave for a month. I better get this out before I go so that whenever I come back, it's ready for me to review. That's kind of where they're coming from. And yeah, or the other big time is right before the fiscal year ends. They're like, oh shit, we haven't spent all of our money. Put this out for bid real quick so we can get it in before the budget, before Congress either passes or doesn't pass our budget. But yeah, it's when you can get the time off, it is really important to set that boundary of, I'm not going to be checking in unless it's an emergency. If it's an absolute emergency, which what emergency with work, unless you are a doctor or something else, something like that, there's some sort of disaster and you're a first responder, that maybe is different. But aside from that, is someone going to die if you can't get a hold of me? Then you don't need to call me. Or unless someone did die. I mean, that's a valid reason to call me, I guess. If one of my team members dies or something, please do call me. But those boundaries are important, but they are very hard. I have been in this industry for 16 years, and only just now in the past couple of years have I felt confident enough in my career, and also strong enough interpersonally to say, this is a boundary that I'm going to set and you will respect it. That would have been really hard for me to do when I was first starting out. Like, who am I to say, no, you can't contact me? But I will tell you that the company loyalty that used to be there in the 1900s is not there now. And so if they're not going to give you that loyalty, why should you give them that loyalty?